first one is.
I thought the Parks Committee voted on all three, no?
They did, that's what I'm asking you. How do we amend
No,
that?
I wanted to ask the
eliminate?
simple question, Mrs. Miller. How much longer can we put off the insurance? Can we put it off until we see B, C, and
That's
D?
6 weeks, though.
Yeah, 6 weeks. Can you explain
Well,
the situation? And
Perhaps, but the bigger concern I would have for Don is that 6 weeks from now is,
yeah, he wouldn't be able to order it
right?
until later
Yeah.
on, yes, he'd have, but at least, if we can put this on hold for, we have 90 days, don't we have 90 days, something like that on this?
60.
And wait to see what the vote is from council, and, I mean, we're all speculating, why don't we just wait? And if Mrs. Miller can, do her magic and tell them, oh, we're working on it, or you're out of the office when they call, you might be able to get through 6 weeks until we vote on this.
Who's to say?
I'm just saying,
Right.
and then you don't have to worry about putting it here, doing that, just tell the insurance there's complications there.
I believe that Mr. Patterson told us when he first asked for this, that he wouldn't be able to get the equipment until September in the first place.
Exactly,
So
so,
if we wait 6 more weeks, it's next year before he gets equipment.
well, and it, who knows? I mean, he might be able to get it, maybe we'll have 60-degree weather in November, he'll be able to put it in there. At least that money's being spent at College Street, and if they have to wait a little bit longer because of this sale of College Street and harder and that, I don't, what is the rush? I mean, you put the horse before the cart, so here, we're trying to get into contract for the playground, but then yet, we're selling College Street. I mean, duh.
Mr. Heidick?
Thank you, Chair. Director, is our insurance, does it have a actual time frame that, to get the gap coverage there? Is it 1 year, is it 2 years, is it an infinity? Is there a
I
rider
think
on
they've
that?
been very patient.
But is there a hard line number?
Well, they haven't told it to me yet, but they might.
Or they might not.
Mr. Griffin?
Mr. Draper, is it possible, I know that I was at the Parks Commission meeting. They voted not to sell College Street Park.
Right.
Is there any way we can just kill the whole thing and leave College Street Park the way it is for the city and for Mr. Patterson to put the playground back to where it was burned out at and forget the whole deal? Or do we have to go through the whole thing? Can
And
we
I don't know
just?
why you want to sell College Park.
Yeah,
I mean,
and I don't want it on the ballot.
I mean,
I
I don't
don't
know what
want
the
it on
point
the ballot.
is. It's not like a park not being used. We use that park.
It's being used. Can you kill the whole idea and go with the Parks Commission and go on to something else?
We're selling the other two pieces of park because they're not used. This one's been used for many, many years, and it will be reused as soon as the playground goes there. So why are we selling College Park? Why is that even an option?
We're not gonna sell it yet. We're just, it has a vote for this, and this is,
But it shouldn't even been part of that legislation.
this idea came from Mr. Heidick, and as a councilman, we gotta respect his request.
You can
So-
question
And we
anybody.
did question it, and we had our concerns. This way, we'll go in front of the council members, and,
Okay, Mr. Heidick, what was I understand the other two parks. What was your reason to sell College Street when you knew that the insurance company, was reimbursing us and that Mr. Patterson he wanted to replace that? So what was your reason, knowing that he wanted to enter into contract, what was your reason to put College Street on with Harder and Conrad? I'm
Number
just
one-
interested in wanting to know why that got in
Number
there.
one, the matter requested came at the same time as my request. So I didn't know about it until the same time you saw my request. Number two, I have to
And you
side
weren't going to
with
withdraw
number-
it. You weren't going to withdraw your request.
Excuse me. Number two, I have to go on the side of our safety director and our law director that this is what they called, in their words, an attractive nuisance. I don't want, Director Eisman, have we had anybody hit? Have we had anybody, has anything horrible happened on Snyder in front of that park?
I only did not want the playground equipment. I didn't say close the park.
Okay,
It's-
but
You're
let-
taking it for a different.
Right.
use.
But having an attractive nuisance, as it was said, do we want to sit here and build up a park and be the first? Have the first? Again, our law director and our safety director, I have to trust their opinion. Our law director was elected by the people, our safety director was appointed by the mayor for her abilities to oversee safety. The mayor also appointed with our approval, the Parks Commission. So we have two appointees, appointed board and an appointed position at odds. And in this case, I love all the members of the Parks Commission, but they're not safety directors. Director Iceman is.
Mrs. Marie?
Okay, so you want to say that the park, the equipment was unsafe in that area? I'm just asking a question. Is it the
I did not
equipment?
say the equipment was unsafe. Let's make it very clear.
Okay.
I do not want the parks to.
Okay, I understand. that.
Okay.
I understand that. But if you're saying that the park itself is unsafe,
Not what I said.
okay, then tell me what you said.
You were at the Parks Commission meeting when I was there.
Yeah, refresh my memory.
Okay. I said that putting in the new playground equipment was an attractive nuisance. And then I gave the counts for AMATs for the traffic, that it's the traffic, it's 5,400 per day. The amount of the Metro bus, how many stops we have, how many times a day it goes through, and that was my concern.
Okay, but it goes past Tusk Park also.
The traffic count is not as high, nearly as high. I don't have the number 20, but it's not
Okay.
nearly as close, and it is it's set further back. I see what you're
Okay.
saying, but it's a different location.
But College Park also has a fence around it. And
Yeah.
I don't recall any kind of accidents, no fights, no drugs, no police of any kind for any security reasons at College Park. And I'm 60 years old, and I grew up in that park. I grew up in that area. There has not been any type of accidents, no fights. You don't find no drug activity going on in that park because it's for the kids. And if you think that, okay, it's a safety hazard, then move it back some. But it's unfair. It is very unfair to take it away from the kids. I mean, I'm sure you were an adult. All of us played in a park. We've all played in parks before. So what do you want? Your kids to play in the park and learn how to be friendly or go out and deal drugs? I'm done.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Marie.
Mr. Jaber, attractive nuisance, okay? To me, a playground thing is not an attractive nuisance. That's my opinion. If it was a splash pad or something, water sports or something like that, that would bring kids from all over because of the weather, the heat. They have playground equipment over there on the other side. The fence, 3 of them over there, I think. Why would they run over there on a large scale to play at something that they somewhere have just because it's new? If it was a water park, splash pad, something like that, to me, it would be attractive nuisance. That's my theory, but what do I know? You know, and it's a bunch of crap to me. And I was playing at that park. I know no one wants to know what used to be, but I was playing in there before most of you were born in here. And that's a fact. And they didn't have a fence. They had cardboard shacks over there for the housing. And kids run all over the place. And it wasn't a safety, it wasn't a nuisance then. And it, what's that?
B&W was open.
Yeah, B&W was open, all that. You had traffic going up and down the street, so I don't even, I'm done with it. It's not attractive nuisance, and I'll vote no on anything for the sale or whatever, College Street.
And that's what we're gonna do in 6 weeks.
And I don't even think it should even be, it should come off. It's just, whatever.
Again, we gotta respect other council members here too.
Oh, sure, I
So
respect
that's why
them,
we
yeah,
gotta put it on
but
the
they have
ballot,
to-
and not on
they-
the ballot, but you know.
They have
for
to
us
respect my idea too. And
Right.
I respect, if you don't agree with someone, it doesn't mean that you're not friends or
100%,
nothing
you're
like
right.
that. You have your opinion, I got my opinion. They just clash. That's why you have something to Parks and Mission, they said, okay.
This is why we'll vote on this, and we'll go from there. So, since we got a vote on the College Park for sale, we gotta wait for 3 readings. I'm go ahead and let our aides hold off on that for now.
Call
for it?
Yes, but we can go 3 readings on that at the same time.
It's an emergency.
You can still go 3 readings.
Well, just,
You can hold off another week. You have parks next week.
Yeah, we'll hold off on that till next week.
I mean, come on.
Yep. All right, so there's no miscellaneous discussion on this special meeting. Can I get a motion to adjourn, please?
I'll make that motion.
And I'll second it.
All right, Mr. Heidick and Mrs. Fry, and we are adjourned at 7:06, and with that, we pass, sir.
We have another special rules, marketing and development.
I'd like to report the last, no, the reports.
Well, it's special this week.
The special is, okay.
You just have to talk about one thing.
Okay. Well, the time is 7:07. I'd like to call this Rules Marketing Development together. And we have Mrs. Taylor Thompson absent, and we have myself and Mr. Heide. All other council members are present. And all guests noted. We have requests for legislation tonight. The following was held over for further discussion from the May 8th, 2023 regular rules, marketing and development and committee meetings. A letter from Thomas Heide, Councilman at Large, requesting legislation proposed charter amendment, Board of Control. And we have a request.
Chairman.
Do you have any, yes, Mr. Heide.
Thank you, Chair. Being that the original request, you were absent last week, and we have 2 counselors absent this week, and being that this would be the cutoff date to call the committee of the whole to put to 6 weeks, I will say the same thing I said last week. I'm not comfortable without a full council here to deliberate at one time. Therefore, if it pleases the chair, I'd like to withdraw the legislation request.
Thank you, sir. It's withdrawn. We'll withdraw it until
just withdraw.
Never.
next week.
It's just
Never.
gone.
Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
I second it. All in favor?
Aye.
We adjourn at 7:09. With that, I pass, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Griffin. Next up is finance personnel, Mr. Haddock.
Thank you, Chair. Finance and Personnel, it is 7:08, Monday, May 15th, 2023, in council chambers. The committee is present with the exception of Councilor Thompson, which includes Councilors Coburn, President Greer, myself as chair, and others noted. We have some requests tonight. First, letter from Don Patterson, Director of Barberton Parks and Recreation, requesting legislation to enter into a contract with DWA Recreation, the amount of $129,810.84 to replace the play structure, College Park. Emergency wording requested. This has been referred from Parks and has been held, and I will do the same with respect to Councilor Jaber's committee. Next, a letter from Jeremy Flaker, Finance Director, requesting legislation authorizing the Finance Director to execute and deliver a lease purchase agreement with Freedom Financial to finance the acquisition of one Pierce Saber pumper truck with equipment in an amount not to exceed $890,000. Emergency wording is requested.
I'll call for that.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That is it. So I will open up committee. Any miscellaneous discussion? Counselor? Any?
No. So
President.
you're holding, you're going to hold this?
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. President? Anything?
I am just calculating, I'll have numbers for you, this is miscellaneous. sorry.
Yes.
On the request from the Parks Director on the 60 days. So I'll have a final date for you guys, 6 weeks time, put on matters.
Correct.
Make sure that that happens or something.
Correct. Any from the body? From the gallery? Seeing none, do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Thank you. We are adjourned at 7:11.
Thank you, Mr. Head. That concludes our individual committee meetings for this evening. We'll take a 10-minute break. We'll come back and do the committee as a whole.
Yeah, I know, that's why I was
Those girls, well, some of them stayed. Those little high school girls, they wanted to talk, I think.
All right, we're going to begin. Again, I ask to silence your cell phones or turn them off, and council members, please ensure your microphones are turned on. All right, today is Monday, May 15th, 2023. This is a committee of the whole meeting for Barberton City Council. I call this meeting to order at 7:25 p.m. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. We do have a couple citizens addressing council, so we will start with Mr. Don Morris.
May as well forget it. Can't get no questions answered. There's no sense of me taking up your time.
You sure?
Positive.
All right, thank you, Mr. Morris. Next up is Mr. Jeanette. If you step up to the microphone, please state your name, address, and reason
Whichever one you
and
like.
reason for being here. You have 5 minutes.
Okay, my name is Bob Jeanette, 445 31st Street, Southwest, Barberton, Ohio. Just want to talk a little bit about some of the issues that I see within the city. First of all, I'd like to thank everybody here at City Council and Mr. President for serving. I mean, it's a thankless job at times, and it comes with a lot of responsibilities. And the administration, forgive me, but I have not been introduced to all of them, and I know Mike, the engineer back there. But at times, you know, decisions need to be made that benefit the community as a whole. And it doesn't, you know, not necessarily the vocal minority. And I'll come back to that comment a little bit later. But a healthy community, I always look at it as like a three-legged stool. You gotta have schools, jobs, and neighborhoods. You gotta have strong schools, good jobs, and vibrant neighborhoods. And I'm not sure if everybody here, council, administration, citizens, if you're happy with the way our neighborhoods look today. And if we are, that is a sad state of affairs, because I am not. And it's just not the landlords, it's not the property owners that is at fault. Everybody's at fault. Everybody in this room is at fault. The administration's at fault. Everybody has to share some blame in this. You know, and I don't know if we drive around and we become immune to some of this decay in our neighborhoods or not. But I ask council, have you ever visited other councils, whether it be Stowe, Alliance, Maston, sit down with them and talk to them about property maintenance? Because it's not just isolated to Barberton. Instead of reinventing the wheel, it'd be good if we reached out to them. You know, have you sat down with our law director and our judges? Regardless if the mayor is on board or not, council sets the policy. Have you ever had that opportunity to sit down with them and explain that some of the issues that we're dealing with? And I'm not so sure if you've ever heard about the broken window theory. It was an article written in 1982 by two gentlemen, George Kelly and James Wilson, using previous research from Stanford, that said, you know, basically that if it doesn't matter how rich or poor a community is, but if there's a broken window and it's not repaired, then the perception is nobody cares. So they can lead to more broken windows, you know. And so it's very important that we stay in tune with property maintenance, and it goes from the mayor on down. Whether it is the service director, even your employees that, whether the utilities garage, it's not their focused job, but if they're out in the community and they see these cars laying there, whether unlicensed or in the middle of a yard, bring them back. Well, everybody has to take responsibility. Until we all take ownership in this, our city is going to continue to decay. And just pulling in here, talking about the broken window theory, just pulling in here today, the park sign over here says, "Take Pride Day, April 22nd. Oh my God, come on people, that's been 4 weeks ago. Don't you think we had to change the sign? Walking in a city building, there's notifications of a special election, May 2nd. That's been 2 weeks ago. And I'm an electrician, so yeah, this does bother me. Look at the different colors of lights you got in here. It is ridiculous. But that may be a personal thing because I'm an electrician, And then, so I do call my council person, and she says I turned it in. What does that mean? Is it a form that administration wants to be able to turn it in? If so, that's fine. But you need to follow that up with memos to the service director, the building commissioner, copy everybody and their brother. That way it cannot be avoided. I learned that the hard way when I was a council person, how to get things resolved. You send one letter, that can be put aside. Send another letter, you start copying people, you get action. And then to take this to say that, people don't care anymore. Well, that's what I call BS. Matter of fact, I was a custodian at C&M Church before, getting back 40 years ago, and these elderly ethnic ladies, including Mrs. Miller's mother was one of them, they told me, they said, you can be poor, but you don't have to be dirty. And I know you can't legislate lifestyle, but you know what, you can be a pain in the ass to some of these residents. Either they're gonna clean up their property, or they're gonna move out. And probably moving out would be better for everybody, And I ask council members, and you don't have to answer me, but how many times would you drive around your ward identifying areas or properties that need to be addressed and come back and turn them in, But again though, when I was president, I didn't want the service directors to hear of an issue for the first time on council floor, But after like the third or fourth time addressing the service director, you get no response, it's fair game at that point. But I wonder how many times the mayor has driven around on his own accord, because this is his neighborhood, this is his city too. I can't answer. I wanted to ask him tonight, or I'll just bring it out to him, but you can ask him, how many times has he driven the city on his own, identifying properties to come back and that need to be addressed? In the sports team, if you have you don't need a defense if you have an offense. Well, we don't have an offense, and we're playing defense. We are reactionary this whole time. And many of you know Chuck Fowler. You had to ask him how we met. I was a councilman sitting right here, and I was bombarding him with letters until I got letters back from his attorney saying cease and desist. But you know what though? He had a rental beside down in Mary Factor on Northview, and I wasn't giving up for those people. I fought hard for them. In the sidewalk program that we have, very proud of that. But that wasn't something we invented. Marty Bodnar, he was a law director. He said, we're paying an excessive amount of claims. He said, something needs on these sidewalks that are with different elevations. He said, we need to do something about it. And actually, the city of Medina had a sidewalk program, so we tweaked it a little bit, and that's where we implemented. We didn't reinvent the wheel. The grass is growing now, weeds are getting high. I don't know the procedure right now for cutting it, but if it's still driving around, putting a little notification in there, that's so archaic. I think it was Zanesville or Steubenville that I met with, that all the properties that they cut in 22, in the beginning of 23, they took out an ad, and they said on there, we cut these properties in 2022, and if your grass exceeds 12 inches, we're cutting it again. That was the notification. And the cutout repairs, on utilities, the engineers beside you can ask them, but if you exceed 12 inches, you cannot compact anything more than that. And is what happens on these cutouts, when they backfill and everything, they want the gravel, the cars run over it to compact it, they go send city workers out there to sweep it back in, compact it again. Then after about 6 months, they might seal it. Well, then about a year later, all of a sudden, you can tell that there's there was a cutout there. When I was with county council, I was a District 8 liaison, so I was around a lot of engineers, and specs can be written to cap those properly, and it's more efficient to pay overtime to finish that and never go back to it again. Just food for thought. And then, we talk about making a walkable community. We spent millions of dollars on 9th Street. And I know it was not, Miss Ainsworth probably was not a popular item on that street to put sidewalks in. But again, going back to doing what is right for the community, that project should never happen without the sidewalks. Because that is a public street and not a private street. And those residents up there, if you're gonna push a baby in a stroller, where are you gonna push them now? Because there is no sidewalk. And I know those people didn't want them, but looking at the big picture, just like Shorter mentioned earlier about houses with no garages, now they're dealing with it. Now we got a street with no sidewalks, now we're dealing with it. I have some items here. This here was across the street. This trailer sat over there for 7 months, okay, in 434 31st Street. And the plates were expired in April. I took a picture of that, I sent it to Mrs. Fry, and I sent it to Lisa Miller, and within a week it was moved. This right here, Worcester Road West. The car parked on the curb, right on the Devil Strip. Nobody's seen that? Nobody has seen that to turn that in? The police, first they can ticket it. Second of all, every city worker that works here, drives by. In fact, they had the, what do you call those, snow guards or whatever, the little posts identify, where the sidewalks are, so when they plow snow, he's got those in front of there, and I'll leave this with you. Trailers, boats, and yards. And this was just a 10-minute drive into 6th Ward. This wasn't, and Mrs. Troy is very familiar with this. And there was, again, it goes back to the broken window theory. We got a car on Worcester Road West. Parks there every day on the curb and shoulder. Is that what we want to accept in this community? Is that what is going to make it a vibrant community where kids will come back and want to live here? This right here is on 37th Street. You're well aware of this one. Is that trailer licensed? I don't know. I didn't have the courage to go get that picture taken. Is he running a business out of there?
Yes.
And this right here, this is up on Maple Street. Maple Street, yeah. I mean, is that car licensed? Is it operable? I mean, nobody's seen this stuff. This is driving. Obviously, it drives me nuts. But there are just. Here's the good one. This is Union Street. Okay. Now that motorcycle may be licensed, but you know what? Again, it's not on a driveway, so I would, and I know this seems small, but it goes back to the broken window theory. If we don't address these, then it's like nobody cares. Then all of a sudden, the neighbor across the street's gonna have stuff like this. That camper back there, you can barely see a camper. Is it licensed? Everybody's got to take ownership in this community. And again, we got to be on the offensive, and we are just so reactionary right now. So I appreciate your time. Again, I appreciate what you do. I wish the mayor was here, but you're the messengers. And and if anybody ever wants to call me, because I got a lot of historical knowledge about what has transpired and where we're at, but I really think meeting with other communities, even if it's just one or two, you would just go and call them up, say, hey, can we sit down and can we talk? So, but again, I'm very passionate about this, and and every day Saturday for me, so you're liable to see me more often now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jeanette. There is no more citizens addressing council.
That one's moved, Bob.
We will go into committee reports. Street, sidewalk, and lighting. Mrs. Angela.
Thanks, Bob. Street, sidewalks, and lighting met this evening at 6 o'clock. Erica Bailey, who's on the committee, was absent, Mr. Griffin and I. We had a request, legislation, a letter from Michael Teodecki, city engineer, requesting legislation to allow the mayor to enter into contract with the Ohio Department of Transportation for the improvement of Hopkinton Avenue from Hillsdale Avenue to 8th Street Northwest, Norton Avenue from 17th Street Northwest to Barber Road, and Snyder Avenue from 2nd Street Southwest to 15th Street Southeast. Emergency wording is requested. That was passed out of committee, and we had a little bit of miscellaneous about the 2023 road resurfacing. We just voted on it last week, so they're still working on that. And with that, I pass.
Thank you, Mrs. Angela. Next up is planning, annexation, and codes. Mrs. Thompson is absent. Mrs. Angela?
Thank you. Planning, Annexation, and Codes Committee met this evening at 6:12. Mrs. Thompson, who is the chair, was absent. I'm co-chair, Mr. Greer's on, and Mr. Jaber. We had no request for legislation, no pending legislation, and with that, I pass.
Thank you, Mrs. Angela. Next up is city utilities. Mrs. Coburn.
Thank you, Mr. President. City Utilities met May 8th, 2023 in council chambers. We had no request for legislation and nothing pending. And with that, I pass.
Thank you, Mrs. Coburn. Public welfare and safety. Mrs. Fry.
Thank you, Mr. President. Public welfare and safety met Monday, May 8th, 2023. Here in council chambers. All members of my committee were present with the exception of Mr. Griffin. All council members were here and guests as noted on my sheet. We had one request for legislation. It was a letter from Steve Iono, Chief of Barberton Fire Department, requesting legislation to enter into contract with Atlantic Emergency Solutions to purchase a Pierce Sabre pumper for $875,439. Emergency wording was requested. This is going to be a 15-year lease on the truck. We do have another option for a 12-year lease, and this would overlap a bond that we have, and that will overlap for 5 years, and they are recommending that we refinance this lease agreement after 3 years and then go for a 10-year total lease on that particular pumper truck. We had a couple pieces of pending legislation. Actually, we only had one, and it was in relation to the pumper truck, and it was a grant request from the fire department for submitting a grant to the Barberton Community Foundation in the amount not to exceed $900,000 to replace an outdated 2000 E1 pumper. It is currently the oldest engine in our fleet, and if we would get money from the foundation for this grant, it would be put towards this lease that we are signing in regards to the fire truck. And with that, I will pass.
Thank you, Mrs. Fry. Rules, Marketing, and Development. Mr. Griffin.
Thank you, Mr. President. Rules, Marketing, and Development met on May 8th. We met in council chambers. I was absent. All other members were present. One request for legislation, a letter from Mr. Heidick, Council at Large, requesting legislation proposed charter amendment, Board of Control. It was put on hold for further discussion. Motion to adjourn at 7:08. With that, I pass.
And tonight's meeting.
Tonight's meeting.
Oh, it's tonight, well, that was report. Okay, well, anyway, tonight's meeting, we had a special meeting, a regular Marketing Development Committee meeting, a letter from Mr. Heidick at Large requesting legislation proposed charter amendment, Board of Control, and it was still put on hold tonight.
Withdrawn.
It was withdrawn, okay. Thank you. With that, I pass.
Thank you, Mr. Griffin. Environmental Health and Social Services, Mr. Jaber.
Thank you, Mr. President. Environmental Health and Social Services, Mrs. Erica Bailey, the chairman was absent, so as co-chair, I took the committee. We had no new request for legislation, we had no pending, and we had no miscellaneous, and we adjourned at 6:12. That I passed, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Jaber. City Properties, Parks, and Recreation, Mr.
Thank you,
Jaber.
Mr. President. City Properties Park Recreation met May 8th, 6 o'clock, location council chambers. All members were present, including myself as chair, Mr. Heidick, and Mrs. Fry. We had 4 requested legislations that were put on hold. Then we had also a letter from Stacy Carr, Planning Department requesting legislation for amendment to Barberton's Project Impact Program to amend Ordinance 109-2015 and adopt the project impact rules. Emergency wording was requested. We had a motion for that, and we voted and passed. And we also had a letter from Stacy Carr, Planning Department, requesting legislation to rescind Ordinance 115-2016. Emergency wording requested. Motion with that, and we passed, voted. Then we had 1 pending legislation presented by Mrs. Angeloff and myself into a contract 2023 street resurfacing program. An ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter a contract with Perrin Asphalt and Concrete for the asphalt paving portion of the 2023 resurfacing program, Edgewood Park and Tuscarora pickleball courts, and declaring emergency. And we had no miscellaneous discussion. We adjourned at 6:39, sir. And for tonight's, we had another city property special. Myself, Mr. Heidick, and Mrs. Fry. Myself as chair. Council members were present besides Mrs. Bailey. Mrs. Thompson are absent. First one was a letter from Don Patterson, Director of Parks, Recreation, and Legislation, entering a contract with DWA Recreation, amount of $129,000 to replace the play structure at College Park. That was put on hold. Then we had a letter from Mr. Thomas Heidick, Councilman at Large, requesting legislation to place the following on the ballot: the sale of College Park. We had a motion, and it passed 2-1. Then we had also a letter from Mr. Thomas Heidick, Councilman at Large, requesting legislation to place the following on the ballot: sale of Harder Park. We had a motion for that, and we had a vote, and it passed 2-1 again. Then we also had another one, a letter from Thomas Heidick, Councilman at Large, requesting legislation to place the following on the ballot: sale of Conrad Park. We had a motion for that, and we also had a vote 2-1, and that passed. And we had a motion to adjourn, and we adjourned at 7:06, and no miscellaneous discussion since it was a special. With that, I pass, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Jaber. Finance and Personnel, Mr. Heidick.
Thank you, Mr. President. Finance and Personnel is calling for the following. Legislation authorizing the Finance Director to execute and deliver a lease purchase agreement with Freedom Financial to finance the acquisition of 1 Pierce Saber pumper truck with equipment at an amount not to exceed $890,000 with emergency wording requested. That finance passes.
Thank you, Mr. Heidick.